Okay, this is the car that I'm going to be doing the Sniper install on. It's actually installed right now, but this is a preview to the installation. Couple of things I want to point out. First of all, in the video, you will see that I mentioned that the gasket from the throttle body to the intake manifold is not included in the kit. It definitely is included in the kit, so I misspoke, I think, a couple times on that. The other thing is, in the process of my installation, I started my installation before I received the in-tank pump, the Holley, I think it's 12-300, and they were back order for like 3 months. So I changed my installation from in-tank pump to external inline pump. So you'll see that in the middle of the video that switches. So here we go. So I'm going to start my Sniper EFI install. I'm going to first go through the parts that you need and what comes in the box. So I've got the 550-510, 511, or 516. So that's the basic kit. And also note the if you want to get the detailed instructions, you have to download it. So this is just the quick install. So I'm just quickly go over the parts. So this is the main throttle body that comes with the kit. You get the display. It comes with the bung adapter and the clamps. It also comes with the oxygen sensor, which is connects right here to the main throttle body. Comes with the temp sensor, and I did have an adapter here that I bought from Ace, which I'll show later. So that's required for my application. You do have the main harness here, which includes this, a couple other small items. It includes the gasket, carb gasket, and then the items which I will need. First of all, the return line, which is this one right here. I'm going to be using the in-tank pump, so I do not need a return line. So I need to cap that off. So I've got the Summit part right there, which is just a cap, 6AN cap, which I'm going to put on there. Then I've got the 90-degree vapor guard. There's the part number right there. That's going to go on right here. Now I wanted 90-degree because it gives me more flexibility. If you just have a straight, if you've got a drop air cleaner gasket, that may not work for your application. With the 90 degrees, it'll give you some flexibility as to how you want to the fuel to enter into the throttle body. Then I have my 10-foot of the Earl's 3/8 inch fuel line, which is for fuel injection. So I've got that, and I've got also 10 total clamps, 5 in each bag, so I can clamp it on, for example, the different fitting or the different fittings. Also, I have the fuel filter, which you can buy at Amazon. There's the part number. I also got the installation kit. And one item I do not have yet is the in-tank pump, which I've yet to receive, so that's coming soon. Otherwise, I've got everything I need here to get the install started. We'll see in a bit. So I'm going to start the install by installing the temp sensor. So I already took the plug out of the intake manifold, and I had to buy the adapter from Ace Hardware, and so we're going to install that. Just going to put a little bit of silicone RTV on it, high up temp RTV, because it's on the intake manifold and it gets kind of hot. So I'm going to put a little on there. I don't want any to get actually into the coolant, but I'd still want to get some on the outside so it gets a nice seal. You usually don't need too much, but you want enough so that you still get a good seal. Okay. So we'll just thread that in there. Okay, we should see beat up a little bit on the outside, which is good, so it's getting a good seal. And then we've got a 7/8 socket. I'm going to put that in right away. Cover back on. Just don't want anything dropping in the carb. Okay, nice and tight. We don't need to torque that, but just want to get a nice tight fit. Okay. So now when we put the temp sensor in, it's already got it's pre-filled or some application of a sealant on there. So we don't need to seal that or put any silicone RTD on that. So we just put that right in there. There we go. And this is I checked already 3/4. We're using a 3/4 deep well and it fits right over it. So, because the connector is designed so that you can just put a deep well over it. So I gotta grab another socket quick, because that is a 3/8 and not. Perfect. And not 1/2 inch. Okay. Get that nice and tight. So we're good to go there. So one last check. Okay, that's good, perfect. Okay, we've got that in. And then we'll move on to the next step. So that plugs in right to the harness, and so that's ready to go. All right, so let's talk about some housekeeping items before we get too far. So one thing that we definitely want to do is, like I have mentioned before, we're covering the carburetor. It's always a good thing to cover that so we're not dropping stuff in there, any parts or any tools, because that's bad. You do not want to get parts in there that are either difficult or impossible to retrieve. So the other thing is disconnect the disconnect the battery. I actually have the positive disconnected, but you definitely want to disconnect the battery so you're not having a connection there. And also, you may need to. I didn't need to drain any of my radiator fluid for this. Because I haven't run the car in a while, and this is like one of the uppermost point of the engine where the coolant flows, so I had very little come out, so I just had a rig just to catch what little came out. But if you have it, for example, the location that may be on the head, you would definitely want to drain a good portion of your fluid so that you don't have it run out on you. Okay, just a couple housekeeping items. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is start taking off the carburetor. So we need to disconnect the return spring. So we'll just leave that sit there. We're going to disconnect the throttle linkage back here because it's easier to get at this one. And I think I can just pull it out. Okay. Not sure if you can see that back there. So that it'll disconnect. So now we have that disconnected. Again, if you're gonna disconnect fuel lines, definitely want to have rags ready to catch any excess fuel. Again, I haven't run this car in months, so it should be dry. But we're gonna have some rags just in case. Okay, there's definitely gas in the line. So you may want to have something to plug it up with. We'll just leave it here for now. All right, so that's disconnected. Got this side all disconnected. Now we're ready to take off the carb. Okay, should be ready to take off the carburetor. There we go. There's the gasket. And we'll take along the rag. All right, we got that off. All right. So let's see what's next. Okay, we're ready to put the throttle body on. I put these studs in. I used a little bit of a Loctite so that they would stay in there. Now these studs had there's a coarse and a fine side. The coarse side goes into the intake manifold, and the fine side is the side that gets connected to the top with the where you put the nut on top of it. Okay, so we're ready to throw the throttle body on. Let's get the rags out of the way. It should be noted that a gasket is not included in the throttle body kit, the Holley Sniper kit, but it wasn't included in the install kit that I bought, which was like approximately $30 kit. So included the some accessories, which included another intake, air intake gasket, There's some other accessories in there. You got another stud, some nuts, and some other things that for 30 bucks I thought it was a pretty good deal. Okay, so let's just throw this guy on there and get her connected. All right, look at that. All right, we do have a problem over there. Looks like we have a issue with the, as you can see over there, we're gonna have to address that. Okay, and as I mentioned, there's an issue with the vacuum line. So the vacuum from to the power brakes, there's interference there. You can see it's hitting. That's why the throttle body is not sitting correctly. So we're going to have to address that somehow. So we'll take a look at that and come back a little later. So that's how it looks right now without the throttle body or carburetor on. You can see how that sticks up there, that vacuum line to the brake booster. According to the instructions on the quick start guide, you can see right there that big where it's capped right there. I should be able to connect right to there. So my plan is to cap that, put a plug in there, and then run that vacuum line directly to the throttle body. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, as luck would have it, I did have a plug. So I pulled it out, put a plug in there. And I also checked the throttle body. It does fit my hose perfectly. And I also took off the plug for the vacuum advance, since I will need it as well. And it's a good idea to take that off before you put it on, because they're not the plug or the caps are not easy to get off. So it's probably a good idea to do that now. And so let's put the throttle body on. So the next step is to simply reconnect your vacuum line, or either cut a new line. I cut a new hose because I only needed a shorter piece. So I connected that to the smaller tube that we just saw in a few minutes ago. And I also connected, put the nuts and screws on and torque those down. They do have lock washers, so you don't need to over torque those. So that's it. And then we move on to the next step. All right, so next step is to figure out the fuel lines. I think I mentioned previously that the throttle body gasket does not come with the throttle body. You need to buy the extra kit for that, so just FYI. And I did replace mine. And I ended up putting the studs in, got my nuts on, so the throttle body is installed and tightened down. So the next step is figuring out the fuel lines. So you could use any of the fuel inlet lines, I believe. Well, the fuel inlet lines are here, here, and here. You can see that one there. And then the other ones, there's actually 4 different locations. The one back here is for the cap. I mean, that's the return line. If you have a return line from the fuel tank back to the carburetor, if you need that, that's where you hook it up. But I do not need that with the in-tank fuel pump, so I'm going to cap that one. So I'm putting, again, I've got the 90-degree angle here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the fuel line back behind the throttle body, back here, and then come down to the fixed location, the hard line. I've got a steel line that goes down. You can see it's clamped there, and I'm going to run it down to there. So that's the next step. All right, so now we're ready to get the fuel line in. You can see what I did here is I already got I got one clamp ready. Let's get that wound around. So I've got it already on the, I figured it would be easier to put the fuel line on there ready. I did not cut anything yet. So I'm going to get this in position, put on my clamp, tighten that up. I'm going to get the different size. So it looks like these clamps have an auto stop. So I think they just stop when it's tight. So you just tighten them up until it basically stops turning. Okay, which is good. And you can see I put just a little bowl on there so we don't have stuff falling in. I just don't. And it still allows me to work around it. So we're going to run it, like I said, back behind the throttle body. I think like this. So let's get it in position. Now the torque, I looked up these torques. It's about 12 to 15 inch-pounds for the torque. So, and it's 11/16. So I'm going to go ahead and torque it right away, get it in position. So I have to kind of estimate here what's (12 to 15 inch-pounds). I guess you just got to sometimes go from experience. I definitely don't want to over torque it though. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, so it's going to run back behind the throttle body. Like this. And the plan is to just bring it down like that, right down. I think we'll just run it like that. That should be good. Maybe leave a little bit extra. We can cut more off later. Let's put a clamp here, so we just put them on. It's ready. And then we just need to cut that. And we're ready to go. All right. Let's just make sure the underside of the air cleaner has got enough room. So this is what the air cleaner looks for me underneath. It's a drop air cleaner, so it sits below it. So we're going to take it off and just double check here. Make sure we got no issues. Looks good. Looks like we should have no issues with that. There's no interference. So let's put this back on. Okay. Get our scissors and we'll be ready to cut our fuel line. I think that's probably good. Just to leave a little extra just in case, but I think that's plenty. That's the radius is good. There's not a real tight radius, so it goes down beneath here. We can clamp it here later, maybe clamp it here. So let's just cut it and clamp it. Cut it right here. This looks good right here. Okay. So we've got the clamp down there already. Just need to hook it up. And incidentally, I'm going to, the plan is to take my mechanical pump off later. There's no reason it just can't sit there now. It's just gonna sort of pump air. I'll take care of that later when I can get it on the lift. Okay. Get that guy on. Clamp it down. And we should be ready to go. Okay. There we go. All right, next step is let's put that cap on. 12 to 15 foot-pounds of torque. So that cap goes on back here. Again, this is the fuel return port on the throttle body from the gas tank, but we don't need that. According to Holley, I talked to them personally. Get 11/16 wrench, 12 to 15 foot-pounds. This one we could probably use a torque wrench later to get it right. We're just going to do a pretty good estimate. Okay. All right. Fuel lines are ready. So the next step is to put on the fuel filter. So I'm deciding right now where's the best spot, and I think I'm going to tuck it in here right behind the throttle body, underneath the throttle body, right next to the valve covers. It should sit nicely there. The other option is right after the vertical here. I don't think it matters too much. We probably don't want it rattling there, but I think we can tie it down and that's not going to be an issue. So we should be good. Okay, I think I'm going to put it right there for now. So let's just grab our scissors again and make a cut. Right here, make sure obviously you want to have the fuel filter in the right direction, the arrow going in the direction that the fuel is flowing. So let's put it right there. All right, so we're going to connect the fuel filter. Make sure it's the right direction. Put our clamp on. You may want to use a little bit of water or something. Make sure it dries though, or some lubricant, because it's kind of hard to get on. Probably not oil, but maybe just a little bit of water. But as long as you can let it evaporate before you start the car. And we're going to flush it anyways, so. So I was thinking about just leaving this disconnect, just clamping this one for now and leaving it disconnected, because what we're going to do is once we get everything installed and get the pump in the tank, we're going to flush the system. But I'm going to clamp it back up now just so I can get it in position and we can take it off later. Okay. One more clamp. Make sure the arrow's in the right direction. Yep, flowing towards the throttle body. Okay, let's clamp this guy on. Okay, there we go. And that's what it looks like. I'm not sure how we're going to mount it. Maybe up a little bit like this, so it's off and up and away, so it's not. I guess we'll keep the fuel cool, but we'll see. There we go. All right, so we're pretty much done with this part of the installation. I did hook back up the throttle linkage, which was an easy connection. I did use a new cotter pin, but it hooked right up. Also reconnected the throttle return spring, so that's reconnected. I did make the connection to the temp sensor, which we installed already, so that's good. So we're pretty much set here. And I think what I'm going to move on next is, although I don't have the in-tank pump yet, I'm going to drop the tank and get ready for that. So see you in a bit. So the first step is to take your license plate off. And then you'll see the connector tube. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but like the rubber hose that connects the filler tube down to the tank. you'll want to loosen those two bolts or screws. So I loosen those, and then you get them nice and loose, and then I tapped on them a little bit. That'll loosen it up, and then you can see that there's some movement on there, and that'll loosen them up. I'm sure it's still going to be tight. It's probably going to be a little bit difficult to get that out of there, but at least it's loose in preparation of lowering the tank. Then the next step I'm going to do is the straps, loosen the straps, get those down. I'll probably jack it up and then loosen the straps right there. So that's the next step. So I got the car jacked up, as you can see, on jack stands, and put some blocks under there just to be extra careful as another factor of safety. Not the jacks, I expect the jack to fail, but you never know. Okay, so before I'm going to undo the straps like I mentioned before, I'm going to make sure that I disconnect the ground that I have right there and the connection to the hard line. Hard line meaning the steel line. And so I'm going to disconnect it right there. And again, the ground. And then I'm going to loosen the straps and drop the tank. Okay, so I'm starting the process of putting in the oxygen sensor. You can see I put a little hole in there to get started, and then the next step is going to be to use a step drill bit, which I happen to have, and that is that's it right there, and it does go up to 3/4, which is perfect. I'm just going to need to be careful not to go through to the other end and go through the, obviously through the exhaust, but we should be good. So let's get started. So I cut the 3/4 inch hole, as you can see in there, and I'm ready to mount the bracket. It should be noted that these included in the kit, the clamps fit 2.36 to 2.72 inch diameter exhaust. Mine is 2.25 inch. So I'm going to add a couple of spacer plates in the clamps. So they're going to go, I'm going to have them in the clamps here. So to make sure, because you can see that these are kind of bent here like that, and you want to make sure you're not trying to clamp on something that's too small. So I'm gonna do that, and it should be give me a good fit. I do have it a little bit higher in the hole higher in the exhaust, so you can see it's not right in the center. It's a little bit higher, so I should be able to keep the 10-degree pointing down, so that should be no problem. So let's get that installed. Okay, I'm finished up down here. I got the clamp on. You can see that everything's all tight. Well, I did tighten everything up. There was no torque specs, but I did tighten it pretty good. Make sure that there's no leaks. I believe this is a crush washer on the oxygen sensor. So, and you can see back here, that's where I did the, let's see if I can get that. I put a couple of spacer plates back there. And then I have it running across the wire cable against the cross member. Make sure it doesn't get, touch anything hot. So it stays away from that. It's also protected. So that should be a good connection. Then I'm gonna have it running down here. All right, that's it for now. Let's see what's next. Okay, we're ready to put the sending unit in. I don't know if I mentioned yet, but I originally was going to get the Holley in-tank pump and sending unit. It was on a at least 2 month back order, so I decided just to get a unit with a return line. I needed to replace my sending unit anyways because of the little, I forgot what it's called here, but the little netting, or the sort of the it's not really a filter, but the sock. Yeah, it's a sock. That needed to be replaced, and but also this is the unit that I got from Summit, but it's from Right Stuff Detailing. Basically, it's got the 3/8 sending line and then a 1/4 inch return line. So I don't need to do anything extra. I can use this unit to have the return line from the throttle body back into here. Okay, so I'm gonna get this set up. I've got like a funnel here so that I can still clean around the area without stuff falling in. So I'm gonna just run a rag around there. And then I'm gonna just to pick out the loose dirt. See if we got everything. No. So it's pretty much off of there, but I just need to blow it off with the air hose. Again, I've got the funnel on there. So there's nothing going to get in the tank. We can still blow it out. All right, I'm going to put a little bit of lube on the O-ring for the sending unit. Here. Just a little bit of oil, so it's got a good nice seal. Nothing, but that's where it's going to get into the gas tank, but just enough to get on there, so it's a nice seal. Okay, wipe off any excess. Put the gasket in. Okay. Put the ring on. The ring's got to go. Let's see. Like this. We're ready to put it in. Okay. Let's get it seated in there. Make sure it's seated right. So it's got to be lined up right so it sits down in there. That's it. We're good. Okay. Took a little bit longer than I wanted, but got it done. Okay, so we're going to put on the return line now. I know probably maybe in the past I've stated that you don't need a return line because of the in-tank system. That is true if you do have an in-tank pump. The one from Holley, you do not need a return line, but since that is like over 2-month back order, I've gone to just a regular external inline pump, and so that means we do need a return line. So I'm going to take my cap off, and that one is not 3/4, where the other one is that I'm putting on, so I need to get a 11/16. Okay, let's take the cap off. And then we're going to put the fitting on. This is for a 5/16 fuel line. Going to put that on. Just remember, 13 to 15 foot-pounds. Actually, this is not critical. So again, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but this is a return line, so it's low pressure. So the it is not critical to get it super tight. You don't want it leaking, but that's good. Okay. So now we have 5/16 line. I'm using 5/16 because, well, for a few reasons. Actually, it's 5/16 is actually cheaper than the 1/4" fuel line at Summit, so that's why I went with a little bit bigger line, because they're going to have less back pressure. Because it needs to have at least 3 psi or less back pressure. So I figured let's go with 5/16. And the adapter, you can't really find an adapter like this for a 1/4", so that worked out well. Otherwise, I needed to do some extra things. And again, low pressure line, so we do not need to have use the high pressure. We're just using a normal fuel line here. So this is like $25 for 25 feet, or actually less than $25. Do not need to use a high pressure clamp. So you should save some money here. There's no need to do overkill when you don't have to. Just need to make sure it's not going to come out. So let's clamp her down. Let's twist it back a little so it's easier to get at. There we go. Okay. That's good. Got a good connection. Okay, we're just going to follow the existing line. Just run it like this. Just like I said, we're going to run it right next to the existing line. Okay, we've got the 5/16 line run back to the fuel tank. So this is the 5/16 line right here. Then I've got a reducer. Okay, reducer. So I'm going to reduce that 5/16 down to a 1/4 line. And that 1/4 line gets connected to right here. Okay, which is the return line. Okay, so that's just an easy connection here. Now we have to do is we have the supply line. So this comes out of the gas tank right here. So what we need to do is run a line, and then we have to have the filter, the pre-pump filter, that's going to then come into here, into the pump. The pump flows this way. So it's going to come out here, and then back to here, back to the engine. Okay, so that's what we got to do. And again, that needs to be the high pressure line. So because that's coming from the tank to the throttle body, and that's high pressure. So we need to make sure that we do that and take care of that. Okay, I think we got everything set up here. Let's go through what we have. So let's start with the supply line. So we've got the supply line right here. That's this one. That's the main 3/8 line into the tank. We've got that to just a standard clamp, because this is not up to this point from the tank through here up to the pump is not high pressure. It's still low pressure because it hasn't gotten to the pump yet. Okay, so we can still use normal 3/8 inch fuel line. Okay, so we just got a clamp. We've got the hose here going into the pre-filter, the Wix 33033 pre-pump filter. Okay, then we've got just normal clamps. Again, 3/8 inch hose. We do have did get the copper washer, but again, this is low pressure, so this should not be a problem here. Into the pump now. Okay, so now we get to where it's high pressure. Now it's pushing hard. So now we've got the 10 millimeter copper crush washer. We've got the fitting that we've shown probably at the beginning of the video. We've got the high pressure clamp. We're now using the Earl's high pressure hose. We can see that. Okay, if we zoom out, then that's going back. Okay, that high pressure hose then goes back to our hard line, which then goes to, that's that one, to the engine, to the throttle body. Okay, now we look at the return line. So that's the 1/4 inch right here. So I've got that clamped to the 1/4 inch hose. Just again, low pressure, 1/4 inch fuel hose. Got the reducer so I can go to 5/16. And then I've got that line running, which we ran earlier, all the way back to the return line on the throttle body. So that's what we have. That's our setup. And that should be good for now. Okay, I'm about ready to start the electrical installation portion of this project. So I did locate a 12 volt powered, let's see, how did they call it? Clean switch 12 volt ignition source. So, and they mentioned that to do that before we start the installation, which is now I realize why that's a good idea, because you kind of need to turn over the engine to determine that it's powered, and you still have a 12 volt source. It's going to go down a little bit when you're cranking the engine, but you still should show you know, 6 or 7 or plus voltage. So I did locate that, but also notice, be aware that some of them are not. Like some accessories, for example, the radio, it did not get any voltage during startup, and you can't have that. You need to have voltage during startup. So I did locate that in my fuse box underneath. So now we're ready to start the installation. Let's go through some of the parts that we have. This is not showing everything in the box, but this is things I will need. This is your main harness. So this connects some of the fuel pump and connects to the battery, things like that. So this is the one you definitely need. This is the display. You'll definitely need that. This is, for me, it's going to be optional. I will end up using it because it's got the external tack, so I will use it, but I'm not going to use it right now to get things set up. I'll just show you the page where, in case you don't have it, but that shows you the different connectors and where they go. And then there's a wire loom. So that's it. So we're going to get started. I think the first thing we're going to do is probably connect this guy and start some of the wiring, like down to the fuel pump and to the battery. Okay, let's review where we're at right now. So we're on the electrical wiring. Let's just take a look at everything that's coming out of the throttle body. So all the cables. You've got your temp sensor, which we have connected. We did that already. On the other side, we have this. That's this wire right here, or cable. That's going to the oxygen sensor. So that's the one that's on the other side there. Then we've got 3 cables coming out here, okay? This is the one where your display gets connected to. This, I believe, is that which we talked about before. It's got the most everything on here is optional, except for the tachometer, which I'm not going to connect now, so I'm just going to leave that hanging for now. And then we've got the last connector, which I have connected, and I've got it running behind the fender. You can see that right there. So it goes behind the fender. And there's 2 wires that go towards the front of the car to the battery. That's the black and red wire. And you can see I've got those already, the connectors on, and those connectors came from the installation kit. And I do have the, which I recommend, highly recommend this battery, although I haven't used it very much, but it's got the posts on the front and on the top. So I can, here you can see I've got 1 post right there. So I can make those attachments easily without having to do any modifications to the battery. And then also coming out of this connector is the yellow wire. Yellow wire goes to the negative of the coil. So I had and they give you a real short wire. So I spliced it here, put some soldered it, put some shrink wrap on it. Shrink tube, and then you've got, see that yellow wire. So I've yet to make that connection up here yet. So I still have that. And then you have the pink wire. It's the pink wire that goes to the ignition source, 12-volt ignition source, the one that's even has the power during the when you have the key in the run position and in the start, turning it over. Okay, and then lastly, coming out of this cable is the blue wire, and that blue wire goes all the way back to the fuel pump, to the positive of the fuel pump. Okay, so I'm tucking that underneath here. You'll see an orange wire connected there, but that's not part of this kit. That's a different wire that I have. Okay, so I'm going to try and tuck that as much as I can under there. Use some wire loom later to kind of hide the wires, but right now that's where we're at. So things we need to do yet before we're ready for install is, again, connect those to the battery. I think that's one of the last things we're going to do. And then we need to connect that the yellow wire to the positive. What is it? Let me check again. I think it's negative of the coil. Let's look right. Goes to the negative of the coil. Okay. So let's start working on that, and then we'll come back in a few minutes. All right, so I just got finishing wiring the fuel pump. So you can see I used the same routing with the blue wire, which is the positive wire. So I use that. Going back to the fuel pump. So I've got that to the pump, as you can see. Then I've grounded that right to the same ground as the tank. So that's grounded up there. So we should be good to go. Okay, I think we're ready to connect the wizard, the display. We've got all the connections. It's a little bit of a rat's nest here, but I'll clean that up later. But I've got the batteries cable connected. I've got the sniper connections down below. You can see connected directly to the battery, so black to negative. red to positive. Got the battery connections. I've got the yellow cable going to the negative of the distributor. I've got the pink wire going to the 12 volt fuse box, so it's powered during run and during startup. I've got the blue wire back to the fuse, back to the fuel pump, and all the connections here have been verified. So we've got the fuel filter, it's going the right direction. Return line is going where it should. Probably should put the air cleaner on, and then we're ready to run the wizard. Let's go grab the air cleaner quick.